And now, let's join ace broadcaster Mamode Akugha as he takes us inside the Niger Delta.
Hello out there and welcome to the program. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. I'm your regular host, Mamode Akugha. We kickstart today's package with a look at the rippling effects of a recent investigative report on the alleged extra budgeting expenditures made by the AKWA state government in its 2019 budget. Our second report focuses on good governance as a vehicle for sustainable development and political stability in the Niger Delta region. Next in our lineup is a reaction of the Niger Delta Development Commission NDDC to rumors making the rounds that the Professor Kemebradikumo-Ponde-led interim management committee was sacked by a recent court ruling. Moving on, we'll bring you an update on a long-standing dispute between Nigeria AGIP Oil Company and its host communities in OGBALAND over alleged corporate social responsibility infractions. And finally, in today's package, we'll bring you the story of deprivation and conflict in the Niger Delta as told by popular filmmaker TARILA THOMPSON in his new world-class movie, In the Creek. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region, will be back after this timeout. Don't go away.
Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, determined to make a difference.
Welcome back. It's Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. AKWA state government, accused of profligating the 2019 financial year by the media and civil society groups, has been in the eye of the storm in the past few weeks. In this report, correspondent Nelson Niger gives us details of alleged outrageous budgetary expenditures made in 2019, as well as the response of the AKWA state government.
In a recent investigative report published in a local newspaper and some online platforms, it was alleged that the AKWA state government fraudulently made extra budgetary expenditure on frivolous items in its 2019 budget. The report revealed how over 10 billion naira was allegedly spent on the purchase of official cars, maintenance of aircraft, special projects, and the governor's hospitality. In their investigation, authors of the report discovered that while 738 million was approved for the purchase of 15 Prado Jeeps in the 2019 financial year, that singular item gulped about 4.86 billion naira in the budget. On the maintenance of an aircraft, the AKWA State House of Assembly had approved 2.5 billion, while the office of the secretary to the AKWA state government went ahead to spend over 5 billion. After carrying out a market survey on the cost of purchased items and services rendered to the AKWA state government, authors of the recent investigative report came up to conclusion that figures published in the Accountant General's annual report and audited financial statement for the year 2019 were inflated and misleading.
Journalists, through investigative reporting, were able to bring this to the limelight. Civil society organizations like ours were able to do breakdown analysis of the budget and visualize these things in a language that people on the streets can understand. We have seen across the Niger Delta the same scenario playing out. Several states of the Niger Delta, especially those who are top on the list of oil-producing states, we have seen that there is a trend of whimsical budgeting. So year in, year out, you see items being dropped on the budget without actual consideration to whether to price intelligence factors, for instance, to whether those items are actually needed, to looking at even whether those items had been implemented in the previous year's budget. So you see things that had been done before still reappearing in the subsequent year's budget.
The AKWA state government has since denied allegations of financial sleaze in its implementation of the 2019 budget. According to the State Commissioner of Finance, Linus Inkan, the government merely relied on the margin of increased costs in the budget office to spend more than what was approved on certain items based on their scale of preference. In another breath, Commissioner for Information and Strategy Eni Ememobong at a recent press briefing in Oyo maintained that the devastating report on financial impropriety was a misinterpretation of an error made in the Accountant General's report, which has been corrected.
This memo effectively withdrew the printed errors, the copies that had the printed errors, and it is stated here. Even laws not made by the House of Assembly or by the Federation of Nigeria, by the National Assembly, at some point where there is an outcry, what do? They don't go to the public, they simply go through the amendment processes as stipulated by law. So this is the process by which a public officer who notices something wrong with a public document relating to the service does. He issues a memo that counters the previous document. So the effect of this memo invalidates the earlier circulated copies and validates the new copy.
For most AKWA Ibomites, the official position on the 2019 budgetary expenditure amounts to doublespeak. The state government's position is further viewed as an attempt to employ damage control strategy to cover its tracks.
Budgets are documents that are there. If there were mistakes in the initial budget, at what point did we realize the mistakes and what did we do about it? There are processes in budgeting procedures that it's against the, in fact, it is impeachable for you to go outside of the provisions of the budget. But there are certain instruments like environment or supplementary budget that you can go back to the House of Assembly or National Assembly, depending on if you're a president or if you're a governor, and get it adjusted. But looking at the report in the 2029 budget, these processes and procedures were not followed. Number one, certain items were just scandalously, imputed in the budget. It was awful. It was unbelievable. Some things were unimaginable and unthinkable.
If you get an approval to spend money and you have need to go beyond that line, you need to go back to the approval where you got the approval from before you can spend. It's complete misapplication of funds, and the law is straight on it.
Considering that the administration of Governor Odom Emmanuel has been battling to complete projects initiated since 2015, as well as others inherited from previous administration, its alleged mismanagement of funds is giving concerned citizens of the state a cause for worry.
We are in a very critical period where more of government spending should go to alleviate the suffering of the people. We must discourage, I say discourage with all amount of sincerity, any expenditure that has no direct bearing on the people.
In the last 4 years, the National Bureau of Statistics has consistently ranked Akwa Ibom State among the states with the highest unemployment rates in the country, despite having been the second highest earner from the federal allocation in 2019. With a total receipt of about 168 billion from the national coffers. The state was unable to pay gratuities and pension in that financial year. It appears more difficult times await the ordinary citizens in the next financial year, as Nigeria grapples with a second economic recession in 4 years. It goes without saying that the challenge before the Akwa Ibom State government is to reconfigure its budgetary allocations to align with the needs of the ordinary people who have always been at the receiving end of poor governance in the country.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Former Minister of Housing, Chief NDUESE ESSIEN, has enjoined prominent indigenes of the Niger Delta serving as political representatives and appointees in the government of President Muhammadu Buhari to sink their political differences and support the region's quest for restructuring the fiscal federalism. Chief ESSIEN made a call in an exclusive interview with Inside the Niger Delta recently in Uyo, the Akwa Ibom State capital.
We would expect our prominent persons in this government to realize that they are there as indigenes of the South and should not always be playing their party to the detriment of the people of the region. After all, after office, they will still come back to their region. So I think the leaders of the region should address these issues to our representatives in the federal cabinet and in the National Assembly to be able to protect their zone while serving in office. The way out is to insist on a restructuring of Nigeria to the regions that was the pivot for federalism, failing which the smaller areas, the minority areas will always be unprotected by the federal government. Because what the South loses goes to the rest of Nigeria.
The former housing minister noted that the Nigerian Federation, as it currently operates, does not represent the collective interest of Nigerians, which is why several groups are beginning to demand for equal rights and justice in the country.
There is a general disenchantment with the governance system, particularly among the youths who are not seeing developments coming, who are not getting employment, youths who have been trained in various fields without any openings for them either in government or to set up their private businesses. So what Nigeria is now facing is a complex situation where general disenchantment can lead to a nationwide revolution, like happened during the NSAS protests. The NSAS protest was only one agitation, and it was not only NSAS that was what was in mind. Why many other young people joined the protest was because of the general disenchantment. Let there not be any attempt to muzzle the young people that express their discontent with the governance system. The issue should be properly addressed. That is when Nigeria will have peace.
He called on the ruling All Progressives Congress, APC, to live up to its electoral promise in 2014 to restructure the Nigerian Federation and institute true federalism in the best economic interest of all parts of the country.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Moving on now. Management of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC, has described as false and misleading the purported sack of the Professor Keme Bradikumar-Ponde-led Interim Management Committee by a recent court ruling. In a press statement signed by Director Corporate Affairs of the NDDC, Mr. Charles Odili, the Commission observed that a civil society group, Forum for Accountability and Good Governance, had approached an Abuja Federal High Court with an application to stop the IMC from performing the functions of the board of the NDDC, which the court never granted. Having obtained and carefully studied a certified true copy of the ruling made on October 27, 2020 in suit number FHC/ABJ/CS/617/2020, the Commission maintained that all the court did was to grant the applicant leave for judicial review. In the press statement, the Commission had noted that, and I quote, "This case exemplifies the distractions we have had to deal with in our efforts to reposition and refocus the NDDC as the foremost interventionist agency in the Niger Delta region," unquote. The NDDC therefore urged members of the public to disregard the false and misleading media report, which was intended to bring the IMC to disrepute and distract it from discharging its obligations to the Niger Delta region.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Host communities to Nigeria AGIP Oil Company in Omoku Ogba, Egbema Ndoni local government area of River State have appealed to the federal government to compel the international oil company to carry out its corporate social responsibility in line with agreements reached by both parties in January 2019. The appeal was made by Oil and Gas Landlord Families Association at a recent protest in Omoku town, headquarters of Ogba, Egbema Ndoni local government area of River State. Correspondent Ekana Miofori has details.
After waiting to no end for the implementation of agreements reached with Nigerian AGIP Oil Company at a peace meeting called by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources in January 2019, the Onelga Oil and Gas Landlord Families Association recently staged a peaceful protest in Omok, calling on the federal government to compel the company to implement a corporate social responsibility policy in OGBALAND. One of the demands of the Onelga Oil and Gas Landlord Families Association is an upward review of subsisting land and compensation rates payable by AGIP. It was gathered that in a 1994 lease agreement, the oil major is liable to pay 50 kobo per square meter of land acquired for its operations. While such fees are subject to annual reviews, AGIP has allegedly refused to renew its lease agreement with host communities. To buttress its claims, the aggrieved association produced a receipt dated October 2007 issued by AGIP to a family in Obrikom, indicating payment of the sum of 49,000 naira as full compensation for damages to its property for a period of 20 years.
They just ignore the host family, ignore the host communities. This is the reason why we are gathering here, to let the media know that we are too cheated.
They turn us to their slave. Instead of us to be people who be say them we go to enjoy, we can't become laborers. Now we be grass cutter for them.
Host communities to AGIP in OGBALAND told our crew that the company's adamant posture is in spite of a resolution by a joint investigation team set up by former Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Dr. Ibe Kachuku, directing the Italian oil major to review its lease agreement with oil and gas landlord families in OGBALAND.
And we begin to ask, are they running the private government in Nigeria?
I wonder.
What is actually happening? Is it because of corruption? Should we be corrupt to the extent that we can sell our country, sell our respect, sell our integrity? No. Government should wake up. Yes. If they are sleeping, they should wake up. Yes. Because a situation whereby presidency will write and say, AGIP go and do one thing. They say they won't do it. Why the federal government, it's not just federal government. They are 60% holder of equity in AGIP.
At the January 2019 meeting called by the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, it was collectively agreed that AGIP should increase its employment quota for host communities and provide scholarships and skills acquisition training programs for youths in the area. To the dismay of the aggrieved communities, the company is yet to act on that agreement till date.
They should give us all what we are due for. They should do like other oil-producing companies, oil companies are doing in other areas. We are peace-loving people, and we need AGIP to implement what we agreed to avoid crisis.
During their recent protests in Omok, members of the Onelga Oil and Gas Landlord Families Association lamented that their livelihoods have been lost and their health seriously compromised by the pollution of their environment on account of AGIP's exploration activities in the area.
Our zinc have spoiled. We can't breathe freely because of the pollution. Yes. Bad waters we can't drink. Yes. For that, all these things affect me. Especially if it don't affect others, it affects me mostly. And we see our people die. A lot of them are dying, are blind because of this gas flame. They are suffering myopia, hypermetropia, and all that. They can't see. And please, we are calling upon federal government to call on AGIP, call them to order.
Federal government should try once again to call AGIP to order. Otherwise, we will take it as individual attack or crisis.
When contacted for his reaction to allegations of corporate social responsibility infraction in OGBALAND, General Manager Public Affairs in AGIP, Barry Nwebani said He was not aware of any disagreement with host communities, but declined further comments on the matter. Obviously, the company's position is counterproductive to peaceful settlement of a brewing conflict waiting to explode in no distant time. The implication is that AGIP has the moral responsibility to avert foreseeable unpalatable consequences of a protracted conflict by honoring its agreement with host communities and plowing back its profit from oil and gas production to the development of largely backward communities in OGBALAND.
Inside the Niger Delta. Heritage Bank. Service, performance, respect, integrity, innovation, tenacity, excellence. Heritage Bank, your timeless wealth partner. Looking for irresistible luxury? Welcome to Oak Haven Hotel, located at the heart of GRA Port Harcourt, River State. With a wide array of luxury rooms to offer you exquisite comfort to the VIP lounge with wireless internet services and a fully packed bar, Oak Haven Hotel also has a dazzling swimming pool, a chill-out area, and a massage and wellness spa. For your meetings and events, our conference hall and restaurant Victoria will exceed your expectations. Oak Haven Hotel, comfort you can't afford to miss. Azikel Group, oil and gas, dredging, power and air transportation. Azikel Group, petroleum product sufficiency, energy sustainability, and infrastructure development.
Recently, popular Nollywood actor and director as well as filmmaker TARILA THOMPSON has been talking to the local and international media about his blockbuster movie, In the Creeks. In this report, correspondent Lovely Ofigo takes a look at the plot and inspiration behind the multi-million naira film project, which x-rays the politics of environmental degradation, deprivation, and insecurity in the Niger Delta.
Simply let them go.
I killed the white man.
TARILA THOMPSON's blockbuster, In the Creek, is centered on the struggle for an existence in the Niger Delta. It tells the story of an average Niger Delta community totally devastated by environmental pollution, poverty, and armed conflict. In the movie, agitations by angry youths are met with assaults by military authorities.
You people came, explored, and plundered our agriculture.
Was für Leute, verdammte Scheiße. Mir ist das alles scheißegal mittlerweile. What people?
I don't need. Imena mi okay. Amasa say you see.
Oh, we beg. Where do you have me?
Really will further reduce to zero.
The film project commenced as far back as 2011 with the action-packed scenes shot in the remotest parts of the Niger Delta, South Africa and the UK. In the star-studded cast are some of the movers and shakers of Nollywood such as TARILA THOMPSON, Paul Obazele, Segun Arinze, Omotola Jalade Ekende and Beverly Naya. Also starring in the movie is Gollywood star Van Vika.
We're in touch with the Nigerian government.
I have asked you not to transfer him to Nigeria.
And many more loved ones will die. What would you rather I did? Sit down here and wait for the inevitable?
The brain behind the movie, TARILA THOMPSON, a native of Sagbama in Bayelsa State, says he was inspired to produce In the Creek to retell the story of deprivation and conflict in the Niger Delta with a targeted global audience.
The movie is in French, English, and Spanish, and Portuguese. My DOP is an award-winning DOP. He shot Spartacus, the famous Spartacus movie. And then my assistant director is also award-winning stunt director. He did Expendables with Sylvester Stallone, Jean-Claude Van Damme and all that. So we assemble talents to be able to tell the Niger story the way it was.
THOMPSON, who has had a flourishing career in Nollywood, where he has shot over 60 movies in nearly 3 decades, is an advocate of non-violence in the struggle for survival in the Niger Delta. To make success of the struggle, he calls on all aggrieved parties in the Niger Delta conflict to begin to agitate with a collective purpose.
We can't resign to fate. We have no choice. We have to do all we can to make sure there's peace, but to make sure there's justice. It's not enough for you to sit here and be talking. They'll silence you. But when it resonates across the globe, people will be asking your government questions. Why is it the NSAS? You saw they sitting in the chambers in the UK. Now the government is responding. They are talking. They were not saying anything. Now they are saying something because they know they have to. You understand? So you need to engage them.
The amount of hard work, dedication and creativity deployed in the making of the film has been widely applauded in the local and international film industry. In the Creek is ready to be premiered in London, Amsterdam and New York sometime in December 2020. Hopefully, it will hit the cinemas by March 2021 and in expectation bring the plight of the Niger Delta region in a very unique way to global consciousness.
Inside the Niger Delta.
Well, that's the much we can take on the program for today. Inside the Niger Delta, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region. We'll be back same time, same station next week. Until then, you can follow us on our social media handles showing right now on your screen. Until next week, I am Mamode Akugha, thanking you for staying with us. Bye for now.